Walter Greer had not cried at his wife's funeral. He had stood at the grave in his best black suit, the one June had picked out for him 20 years ago. The one that still fit because he had not changed much, not on the outside. And he had watched them lower the casket into the Tennessee earth. And he had felt nothing. Not nothing. That is not right. He had felt everything at once. So much of it so compressed and dense and immovable that it came out the other side as stillness. Like a man who has been hit so hard, he does not fall. He just stands there, blinking. That was 3 years ago. Tonight was a Tuesday in November. Walter sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee that had gone cold an hour ago and a bank statement he had read 4 times without understanding it. The numbers made sense individually. Together they told a story he did not want to hear. The lamp above the table buzzed softly. It had been buzzing for 6 months. He kept meaning to fix it. June would have fixed it on day 2. Outside, the wind moved through the oak trees he had planted. The year Declan was born. Big trees now. Older than his children felt to him. The house groaned in the cold, the way old houses do, settling into itself, comfortable with its own weight. Walter was not comfortable. He picked up his phone. Declan had called at 6:47. Walter had watched the name light up the screen and then watched it go dark again. He would call back tomorrow or the day after. Declan called to check on him and Walter never knew what to say, and the silence between them had grown into something solid, something neither of them knew how to move around. He set the phone face down on the table. He opened YouTube. He did not know why his thumb just moved. He had been watching woodworking videos lately, mostly, or old footage of bridge construction from the 1960 seconds, things that made sense to him, things with load-bearing logic and clean measurements. He was not looking for anything tonight. He was just looking away from the bank statement. The video appeared in his feed without him searching for it. The thumbnail showed light. A kind of golden reaching light. The title read, "God has a message for you tonight. Do not close this." Walter's first instinct was to scroll past. He scrolled past. Then he scrolled back. He told himself it was curiosity. The professional kind. He had spent 40 years as a civil engineer, and the habit of examining things that did not add up had never left him. A video like this, sentimental, manipulative, probably, designed for people who were afraid he would watch 30 seconds of it and confirm what he already knew. He pressed play. The voice was calm, not loud, not the voice of a televangelist Walter had seen on Sunday morning television in the 1980 seconds, all performance and hair. This voice was quieter than that. More certain. Do not close this video. I mean it. Out of everyone on the internet right now, out of billions of people scrolling past, only 5 were chosen to receive this exact message. Walter almost laughed. He had heard this before. Not this video, but this logic. He had seen it in pyramid schemes, and in the way certain politicians talked, and in the fine print of sweepstakes mailers that still arrived at his house addressed to June. You may already be a winner. Everyone was special. No one was. He kept watching. Your guardian angel petitioned the throne room of heaven for 72 straight hours to make sure you would find this video at this exact moment. That is why you keep waking up at 4 in the morning. That is why something has felt restless inside you. This is not the algorithm. This is divine intervention breaking through to reach you. Walter set the phone down on the table, screen up, and looked at the ceiling. He woke up at 4 in the morning, every morning, without fail. He would open his eyes in the dark and reach to his left, not consciously, not intentionally, just the movement of a body that had slept beside another body for 39 years, and his hand would find the cold, flat expanse of June's side of the bed. And then he would be awake, fully, completely awake, in a way that sleep did not come back from. He picked the phone up again. "Someone who loved you," the voice said, "has been interceding for you, asking heaven to reach you, to remind you that you have not been forgotten." Walter's jaw tightened. He was not a man who cried easily. He was not a man who talked about feelings in the way that seemed to be required of people now. He had grown up in East Tennessee in the 1962 with a father who expressed love through showing up and staying. Not through words, Walter had loved June the same way. He had built things for her. He had fixed things. He had been there. Except for one morning, he pushed that thought down, the way he always did. It went down easily now. He had gotten good at it. "This message," the voice continued, "is for someone who has been carrying something for exactly 48 months. A weight that other people cannot see. A grief that has no clean edges. You have been surviving, but surviving is not the same as living. And God sees the difference." Walter counted backward. June had been diagnosed 48 months ago. She had died 36 months after that, which meant he ran the arithmetic the way engineers do, automatically, without deciding to the wait, had been there for 48 months. 48 months ago was when the doctor had used the word aggressive. He sat very still. The video kept going. Walter kept watching. Part of him, the part that had spent 4 decades testing load limits and stress tolerances, kept cataloging the manipulation. Vague language that could apply to anyone. Emotional music timed to land under specific phrases. The manufactured urgency. He saw the machinery of it clearly. And underneath the machinery, he felt something he did not have a name for. 3 weeks ago, a Tuesday. Also, he noticed that now he had woken at 4 a.m. and had not gone back to bed. He had gotten up and gone to the garage instead. The garage was his space. It had always been his space. June had not come in there because of the smell of oil and sawdust, and because she had trusted him with that room in the way that long marriages develop unspoken territories. He had sat on the stool beside his workbench in the dark, and he had said, out loud to no one, "God, if you are still there, I just need to know she is okay. That is all I am asking. I need to know June is okay." He had not told anyone that. Not Declan, not his daughter Rosalind, not his neighbor, not the grief counselor the hospital had recommended and he had attended twice. He had said it in the dark in a room where no one could hear him. And then he had gone back to bed, and he had not thought about it again until right now. "You whispered a prayer," the voice said, "in a place where you thought you were completely alone. You thought no one heard you. God heard every single word." Walter Greer put the phone face down on the table. He sat with his hands flat on the wood. June had chosen this table maple. She had wanted maple because it was honest wood, she said. Nothing to hide in the grain. He breathed. His hands were shaking slightly. The hands of a man who had held blueprints in mountain wind, who had supervised the pouring of concrete in temperatures below freezing, who had never once shaken on a job site, shaking now at a kitchen table at 11 p.m. over a video on his phone. He turned it back over. 3 days ago, the voice said, something shifted in heaven concerning your life. I want to tell you what that was. But first, I need you to know something. God did not forget the prayer you prayed in the dark. He was there. He is still there. And He has sent this message to reach you tonight, because He is ready to move 3 days ago. Walter did not move for a long moment. 3 days ago, he had been going through the nightstand drawer, the one on June's side. The one he had not opened since before she died, looking for the insurance card that Rosalind said might still be in there. He had not found the insurance card. He had found a small piece of paper, folded in half, in June's handwriting. Neat, slanted slightly to the right, the way her writing always did. She had written one thing on it, Jeremiah 29:11. He did not know when she had written it. He did not know why it was there. June had been a woman of faith in the quiet, consistent way she had not preached to him, had never made his skepticism into a conflict between them, had simply lived her belief, the way certain people carry warmth into a room without announcing it. He had folded the paper and put it in the front pocket of his flannel shirt. He had been carrying it for 3 days. He reached into his shirt pocket now and took it out and set it on the maple table beside the phone. June's handwriting. 3 days old in his pocket. The verse he did not know the words to. He picked up the phone. He paused the video. He typed the reference into the search bar and read what came back. "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future." Walter read it twice. Then he set the phone down and looked out the kitchen window at the dark yard and the dark trees and the sky that was beginning to show the first pale suggestion of stars through the cloud cover. He was not a man who believed easily. He had spent his career in the discipline of what could be measured, stress tolerances, weight loads, the physics of things that had to hold. But he was also a man who had loved a woman for 39 years. A woman who had known something he had not, who had written down a verse and folded it and placed it in a drawer she knew he would eventually open, who had, in some way he could not explain and was not ready to explain, pointed him toward this night. He pressed play again, and this time he did not cross his arms. He just listened. The video lasted 23 minutes. Walter watched all of it. When it ended, he did not move for a long time. He sat with the phone face up on the table and the piece of paper beside it. June's handwriting visible in the lamplight. The oak trees outside moved in the wind. The house held its silence around him the way it always did now. A silence with a specific shape. The shape of one person where two used to be. He did not know what to make of what he had just watched. Part of him, the load-bearing, stress-testing part, knew exactly what it was. Engineered emotion. Crafted urgency. A voice designed to reach people in their most unguarded hours and make them feel seen without actually seeing them. He had noted all of it. He was not a foolish man. But the piece of paper with June's handwriting was still on the maple table, and he could not engineer an explanation for that. He folded it carefully, the way you fold something you are not ready to put away, and slid it back into his shirt pocket. Then he went to bed. He did not sleep for a long time. When he finally did, he slept without waking until 6 in the morning. The first full night of sleep he had gotten in longer than he could remember. He did not pray before he slept. He would not have known how to. Not anymore. Not after 3 years of silence in that direction. But he thought, as he lay in the dark, if you are listening, I am still here. It was the closest thing to a conversation he had managed with God in 3 years. It was enough for that night to close his eyes. Day 4 came on a Friday. Walter was in the driveway replacing the wiper blades on his truck, a simple task, the kind that used to take him 5 minutes and now took 20 because his right shoulder had never fully recovered from the construction accident that had ended his career when he heard the car. He knew the sound of Declan's rental before he saw it. His son always rented the same category of car, practical, mid-size, nothing excessive. He had raised Declan that way without meaning to, just by being what he was. and sometimes that fact filled him with a complicated pride. Declan stepped out in a jacket that was too light for Tennessee in November. He had his mother's eyes. He always had. Walter had never told him that because he did not know how to say it without the rest of it coming with it: the grief, the missing, the particular ache of looking at your son and seeing your wife looking back. He said, "You should have called," Declan said. "I did call, Dad, 3 times. They stood in the driveway for a moment, 2 men who loved each other at a distance they had both agreed to without discussing it. Inside, over coffee that Walter made properly this time, Declan laid it out. He had done research. There was a retirement community in Denver, not a nursing home. He was careful to say that, not a nursing home, a community, active adults, amenities, a woodshop that had availability. The house in Knoxville was large. The property taxes were climbing. The drive to the nearest hospital was 40 minutes. "It is the logical thing, Dad," Declan said. Walter looked at his son across the maple table. He thought about the word logical. He had built his entire professional life on logic, on the primacy of what could be calculated and confirmed. He believed in logic the way some men believed in God, absolutely, as the ground beneath everything else. But logic had not prepared him for what it felt like to sit in this kitchen without June. He said, "Come outside with me." The back porch faced west. June had chosen the orientation of the house deliberately. She had wanted the afternoon light. She had wanted to sit on this porch with her tea in the late afternoon and watch the light change over the yard and the tree line. And Walter had adjusted the foundation plan to make it work. Had done the calculations twice to be sure, because she had asked him to, and because making things work for June had been the organizing principle of his life for 39 years. He and Declan stood on the porch in the cold. Walter said, "Your mother sat here every afternoon when the weather allowed. Last 4 years of her life. Even when she was sick, she would come out here and sit. She said this was where she felt most like herself." Declan was quiet. "I need to tell you something," Walter said. "I have not told anyone." He had not planned this. The words were simply there, rising the way things rise when they have been held down too long, and the pressure finally exceeds the capacity to contain them. He told Declan about the morning June died, how she had been stable overnight, how the nurse had said she was resting comfortably, how Walter had been there for 9 days straight, sleeping in the chair beside her bed. And on that particular morning his back was locked, and he needed coffee that was not from the hospital machine, and he thought he had time. He was gone 40 minutes. June died in the 32nd minute. He had not been holding her hand. He had been in a parking lot 3 blocks away with a paper cup of coffee, and she had crossed from one side to the other without him there. And he had come back to a room that had already changed into something else. "I have been carrying that," Walter said, "every day that I was not there." Declan did not say, "It is not your fault." He did not say, "She knew you loved her." He stood beside his father in the cold for a long moment, and then he said quietly, "The last time I talked to her, 3 days before she died, she told me, she said, 'Make sure your father knows I was not afraid.'" She was not thinking about who was in the room, Dad. She was thinking about you being okay afterward. Walter gripped the porch railing. The railing he had built, the wood he had chosen and cut and stained, his hands on the thing his hands had made, and his son's voice behind him saying the thing he had needed to hear for 3 years, and had not known he needed until this exact moment. He did not cry. His hands tightened on the railing instead, the way they used to tighten on scaffolding in high wind, holding on to the one thing that was solid. But something shifted in him. Some load-bearing thing, some weight he had distributed across everything else to keep it from crushing any single point it moved. Just slightly. Just enough. He turned and looked at Declan. He said, "I am not selling the house." "Okay, Dad," he said, "then I will come back more. I should have been doing that anyway." They stood on June's porch together until the cold made it unreasonable to stay. Then they went inside and Walter made more coffee, and they talked for 3 hours, not about the house, not about finances, about things that had been waiting in the space between 3 years of phone calls. Neither of them had answered properly. It was the longest conversation they had in a decade. Walter did not connect it consciously to the video he had watched 4 nights ago. But somewhere underneath the thought, below the level of language, he noticed the video had said someone from the past would return. It had called it a test. It had said, "Do not open that door." He had opened the door, and what came through, it was not a trap. It was his son. Day 9 arrived with rain, hard, sustained rain, the kind that comes to East Tennessee in November, like a debt being collected. Walter woke to the sound of it and lay still for a moment listening. And then he heard the other sound underneath the irregular drip of water hitting the floor of the upstairs hallway. He got up, found the bucket, placed it under the drip, stood in the hallway in his socks watching the water fall from the ceiling with the particular dread of a man who knows exactly what a damaged roof costs and exactly what his bank account contains. He sat at the kitchen table with a notepad and did the arithmetic. The roof repair would run between $4,000 and $6,000. He had called 2 companies before 9 a.m. Both confirmed the range. The leak was in the decking, not just the shingles. The damage was underneath, invisible until it was not. The kind of structural failure that announces itself only after it has already gone too far. He thought about Declan's offer. The retirement community in Denver, the practical mid-size logic of it. He pushed the thought away. He sat with the notepad and the numbers and the sound of rain and the bucket in the hallway, and he felt, for the first time since Declan had visited, the full weight of being alone settle back onto his shoulders. Not the grief weight, the practical weight. The weight of being a single point of failure in a system designed for 2. Then he remembered what the video had said. Do not make decisions from panic. Slow down, pray. He almost laughed. He was not a man who prayed about roofs, but he was a man who had asked God one question in a dark garage 3 weeks ago, and had found, 3 days later, a piece of paper in June's handwriting that pointed him toward a verse about hope and a future. He was a man who had opened a door the video said to keep closed, and found his son on the other side of it, saying the one thing Walter had needed to hear. He was a man who was, despite himself, paying attention. He sat still at the table. He did not use formal language. He did not fold his hands. He simply said, quietly, to the kitchen, "I do not know what to do. Help me." 7 words. The most honest prayer he had ever prayed. The next morning, just before 8, someone knocked on the front door. Augustin Reeves was 72 years old and had lived 3 houses down for 11 years. Walter knew him the way you know neighbors in a community where people mostly kept to themselves by sight, by a raised hand from a driveway, by the occasional exchange about weather or property lines. June had known him better. June had known everyone better. Augustin stood on the porch with a rain jacket and an expression of practical purpose. He said his roof had the same problem. He had already called a contractor. He trusted a man named Bertram, who had done work in the area for 30 years, and Bertram had said if he could do 2 houses on the same street in the same week, he would reduce the per job cost significantly. Was Walter interested? Walter looked at this man he barely knew, standing on his porch in the rain, offering him a solution he had not asked for, arriving the morning after he had said 7 words to an empty kitchen. He said, "Yes, I am interested." They worked alongside Bertram's crew for 4 days. Not doing the skilled work Bertram's men handled that, but doing what neighbors do when a project lands on a shared street, making coffee, holding things, being present. And in that presence, in the particular intimacy of people standing in cold air watching other people work on something that matters, Walter and Augustine began to talk. Augustine had lost his wife 7 years ago. He said it the way people say things they have said many times, the words worn smooth by repetition, but the thing underneath the words still carrying its full weight, 7 years. And still he said my wife, the way Walter said June as a present tense, as something still happening. He told Walter he had not handled it well the first 2 years. He had closed the door and sat inside it, and waited for time to do what people said. Time did, but time, Augustine said, does not heal anything on its own. Time just makes the wound older. What helped, he said, was going back to church. He was quiet for a moment before he said the next part, as if he was choosing how to frame it. I did not go back because I believed, he said. I went back because it was the only place I did not feel stupid for being sad. The pew did not need me to explain myself. I could just sit there and fall apart quietly, and no one asked me to be further along than I was. Walter did not say anything. He was looking at the tree line. He was thinking about the back porch, and what June had said about feeling most like herself there. He was thinking about how faith had been her territory in their marriage, the way the garage was his, a space he had respected without fully entering. Augustine said, there is a small church at the end of Whitmore Road, Episcopal. Your wife used to go there, I think. Before she got sick. Walter turned to look at him. She mentioned it to me once, Augustine said. Said she wished Walter would come with her sometime. Walter stood with that for a while. The wind moved through the trees. Bertram's crew worked above them on the roof. The sound of their tools clean and methodical. The sound of a problem being fixed by men who knew how to fix it. Maybe sometime, Walter said. It was not a commitment, but it was not a refusal. And for Walter Greer, the man who had not crossed a church threshold in 3 years. Not a refusal was the closest thing to an opening he had allowed himself in a very long time. On the 16th night, Walter watched the video again. He did not plan to. He found it in his history and pressed play before he had decided to. The way you sometimes do things that some quieter part of you has already decided. He watched it differently this time. The second time through, the machinery was more visible. He could see the structure of it clearly, the escalating urgency, the manufactured intimacy, the statistics that could not possibly be true, the stories of Rebecca and James and Maria that had the quality of things assembled rather than lived. He was not angry about it. He was simply clear-eyed. The video ended. He sat in the kitchen, and then a thought came. Not aggressively, not as an argument, just as a question rising from somewhere below the analytical level. The video may be manufactured. But what about the paper in the drawer? June had written that verse before the video existed. Before Walter had any reason to look for it, she had folded it and placed it in a drawer she knew he would eventually open. In the way that a woman who has known a man for 39 years knows which drawers he will eventually open. She had left it there like a message with a slow delivery. Something to arrive when he was ready to receive it. He went to the bedroom. He opened June's nightstand drawer again, more carefully this time, looking at what was there. He found the folded paper he already knew about. He found a photograph of the two of them from 1994, standing in front of the house frame when it was still bare wood and possibility. He found her reading glasses. He found a small worn Bible with a broken spine and pages that fell open to places she had visited often. He lifted the Bible. It fell open near the middle, Jeremiah, page 922. And in the margin beside verse 11, in June's pencil, a small mark. Not a note. Just a mark, the kind you make when you come back to something again and again. She had been here before, many times. In this book, on this page, at this verse. Walter sat on the edge of the bed, her side of the bed, the side he had not sat on in 3 years, and held the Bible in both hands. The video had not given him this. June had, and whatever instrument had pointed him toward June's drawer on a Tuesday night in November, whether it was an algorithm or something older and less explicable than an algorithm, the thing he had found there was real. The handwriting was real. The pencil mark was real. 39 years of a woman who had believed quietly and completely, and had left the evidence of that belief behind her like breadcrumbs for a man she knew would eventually be lost enough to follow them. Walter Greer read the verse again. Plans to give you hope and a future. He did not fully understand what he believed yet. He was not ready to claim anything he had not tested. But he knew this. Something was happening that he had not caused and could not explain. And the engineer in him, the man who had spent 40 years respecting forces larger than himself, knew that the right response to a force you cannot explain is not to dismiss it. It is to pay attention. He closed the Bible carefully. He held it in his lap for a while. Outside, the November wind moved through the oak trees. The house settled around him. The lamp in the kitchen had stopped buzzing. He had fixed it that afternoon. Finally, after 6 months of meaning to, he placed June's Bible on his nightstand, on his side. And for the second time since Tuesday, he slept without waking until morning. The 21st day fell on a Sunday. Walter did not go to church. He was not ready for that yet. Faith, for him, was not returning the way you return to a room you stepped out of briefly. It was more like relearning a language you had stopped speaking, finding the words in your mouth again one at a time. Uncertain of the pronunciation, uncertain whether anyone on the other end was still listening, but he was trying. He sat at the kitchen table in the early morning with June's Bible open in front of him and a cup of coffee that he was actually drinking while it was hot. He had been doing that lately. Small things. The coffee, fixing the lamp, answering the phone when Rosalind called on Thursday evenings. Small things that were not small. Declan called at 9. Walter answered on the second ring. His son's voice carried the particular careful quality of a man approaching something he was not sure of the ground around. He said he had been thinking about their conversation on the porch. He said he wanted to say something he should have said before. He said, "I am sorry I was not here more. After Mom died, I told myself you needed space. But I think I needed space, and I made it about you." Walter looked out the window at the yard. 39 years of marriage had taught him that the most important moments in a relationship are rarely the grand ones. They are the ordinary moments when someone chooses honesty over comfort. When someone says the true thing instead of the easier thing. His son had just done that. He said, "You are here now. That is what matters." It was not a dismissal. It was the truth. Declan was here now, on the phone on a Sunday morning, saying the thing that needed to be said, and Walter was answering, and between those two facts was something that had not existed 3 weeks ago. He said, "Do not sell the house to Denver." Declan said, "I know, Dad, I know," he said, "but come back in the spring, bring the family, stay a week, not a weekend." There was a pause, the kind of pause that means someone is adjusting something inside themselves. Declan said, "Yeah, we will do that." After he hung up, Walter sat for a moment with the phone in his hand. He thought about the video and its warning. Someone from your past will return. It had framed the return as a threat, as a door to be kept closed. But Declan was not a threat. Declan was his son, and the door Walter had opened had let in the first honest conversation they had managed in years. He was learning something about warnings. Sometimes, what looks like a door to danger is actually a door to the thing you need most. He set the phone down and turned back to June's Bible. He was in the Psalms now, working through them slowly, the way you work through something dense and rich, taking small portions and letting them settle before moving on. He had not read the Bible since childhood, since Sunday school in a small Baptist church in Morristown where the pews were hard and the light came through plain glass windows and everything was simple and believed without question. He was not that child anymore, but the man he had become was sitting at a maple table reading words his wife had underlined, and that felt like its own kind of grace. Day 28 came on a Monday. Walter spent the morning going through the filing cabinet in the spare bedroom. He had been meaning to do it for 2 years. The cabinet held 40 years of paperwork, the geological record of a life built carefully, everything filed and dated in his own handwriting, and in June's tax returns warranties for appliances long replaced. The original blueprints of the house folded in a flat drawer at the bottom, the pencil lines faded but still precise. He found the insurance policy 3 hours in. It was in a manila folder labeled Simply Life in June's handwriting. Inside was a policy he had taken out in 2001 through the engineering firm where he had worked for 22 years. A policy that had continued after his retirement because the premiums were automatically deducted and he had never thought to cancel it because he had never thought about it at all. He read the document twice. Then he called the number on the front page and sat on hold for 11 minutes. And when the representative came on the line, he gave her the policy number and waited while she pulled it up, and the woman's voice changed slightly, the way voices do when the news they are delivering is unexpectedly good. And she told him the current value. Walter wrote the number on the notepad beside the phone. He looked at it for a long time. It was not a fortune. It was not the kind of number that changes everything in a dramatic way, but it was enough. Enough to cover 6 years of living in this house without touching anything else. Enough to fix the roof and the truck and whatever else needed fixing. Enough to breathe. He had earned this. He had paid into it for 22 years. It was not a miracle in the conventional sense. There was no mystery to its origin. He had signed a form in an office in 2001, and a woman named June had said good. Finally, you always plan for the bridge, but never for yourself. He sat with that. She had known. She had pushed him toward it, the way she pushed him toward things he needed without making him feel pushed. And then she had gone, and the grief had come, and the grief had compressed everything. All the careful planning, all the forward thinking, everything buried under the weight of her absence. And now, here it was, his own provision, sitting in a filing cabinet, waiting for him to be ready to find it. He looked at the ceiling. He said quietly, "Thank you." 2 words. He did not specify the direction. He thought God probably understood. Day 47 fell on a Thursday. Augustine knocked at 7 in the evening. He was going to the service at the Episcopal Church on Whitmore Road, and he had mentioned it once, and so he was mentioning it again, in case Walter had changed his mind, and if not, that was perfectly fine. And he would see him tomorrow. Walter stood in the doorway. He had thought about this church 11 times in the past month. He had driven past it once, slowly, not stopping. The way you orbit something you are not yet willing to approach directly. A small stone building set back from the road with a wooden sign and a parking lot that held maybe 30 cars. Nothing imposing. Nothing that asked anything of a man just by its appearance. He said, "Give me 5 minutes." He changed his shirt. He found the good jacket. He did not look in the mirror because he did not want to talk himself out of it. They walked because the evening was cold and clear, and Whitmore Road was 3 blocks, and Augustine said the walk was part of it. The arriving on foot. The approach. Walter did not ask what he meant. He thought he understood. The church was small inside. Stone walls and dark wood and candles at the front, and plain glass windows that held the last of the November light. Maybe 40 people, mostly older. A few younger faces near the back. An organ that was slightly out of tune in a way that was somehow comforting, imperfect the way real things are imperfect. Walter sat in the second to last row. He did not sing. He did not know the songs. He held the bulletin they had handed him at the door and looked at the order of service without reading it. The minister was a woman in her 60s, silver hair and a voice that did not perform. She spoke the way people speak when they have stopped trying to convince and started trying to simply say. Walter did not catch every word. The stone walls moved the sound in unexpected ways, but he caught the scripture reading. The lay reader stood at the lectern and read from Jeremiah. Chapter 29, verse 11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Walter became very still. The words landed in the small stone room, and he felt them land. Not metaphorically, physically. Something in his chest that had been braced for a long time. Something that had been holding its own weight against a pressure he had grown so accustomed to, he no longer recognized it as pressure. Released, just slightly, just enough. The way a beam releases when the load is finally properly distributed, he thought. June heard this verse in this room. She sat somewhere in these pews and heard these words, and wrote them on a small piece of paper and folded it, and put it in her drawer for him to find 3 years after she was gone. She had been trying to tell him something. She had been telling him for years, and he had not been listening. And now, in this small room on a Thursday evening in November, he was finally listening. The service continued around him. He was not entirely present for the rest of it. He was somewhere else, somewhere between the room and the memory, and the 3 years of mornings he had woken reaching to his left and found nothing. He was with June on the back porch in the afternoon light. He was in the garage in the dark saying 7 words he thought no one heard. He was at the grave in his black suit, feeling everything at once, unable to fall. He let himself fall now. Not outwardly. He was still sitting in the pew, his jacket on, his hands in his lap. But inwardly, something gave way. And what came up through the opening was not grief. Exactly, or not only grief. It was something older than grief. Something that had been underneath the grief the whole time. Waiting. It was gratitude. 39 years. He had 39 years with a woman who loved him in the patient, particular way that good love works, quietly and without announcement, making the structure sound by being present in it. He had a son who had flown from Denver to sit on a cold porch and say the true thing. He had a neighbor he barely knew who had knocked on his door with a practical solution and stayed to become something more than a neighbor. He had a house he had built with his own hands on land that June had chosen because of the afternoon light. He had been so focused on what he had lost that he had stopped seeing what he still had. The minister spoke the final blessing. Walter did not know the words, but he received them. Afterward, standing in the small stone entryway while Augustine spoke to someone he knew. A woman Walter did not recognize touched his arm gently and said, "I do not think I have seen you here before." He said, "My wife used to come here." She said, "What was her name?" He said, "June." The woman's face changed. She said, "June Greer, of course. She was here for years. She talked about her husband all the time. She was so proud of you." Walter looked at this stranger, she said. She told us once that her husband had built half the bridges in Tennessee. She said she always knew she was safe with him because he was a man who understood how to make things hold. Walter could not speak for a moment. The woman smiled, kindly, the way people smile when they understand they have said something significant without knowing exactly what. And then Augustin was beside him, and they were walking back out into the cold night air. And Walter did not say anything for the first block. Then he said, "She talked about me." Augustin said, "Of course she did. She loved you." Walter stopped walking. He stood on the sidewalk under a streetlight on Whitmore Road in Knoxville, Tennessee, on a Thursday evening in November. And he understood something he had not understood before. June had not needed him in the room when she died. She had already said everything she needed to say. She had said it to the women in the pew beside her and to the neighbor down the street and to the son on the phone 3 days before the end, and to the drawer she knew he would open, and to the Bible she had marked and carried and worn soft with returning. She had said it everywhere, except to the man himself, because she knew the man himself would find it. She knew him well enough to know he needed to find it on his own terms, in his own time, in his own garage at 4 a.m. saying 7 words to the dark. She had trusted him to get there. He had gotten there. Day 90 arrived on a Saturday in February. Declan came with his wife Margot and their daughter Nora, who was 4 years old and had her father's practical eyes and her grandmother's way of tilting her head when she was thinking. Walter had not met Nora in person. They had spoken on video calls, which Nora approached with the solemn curiosity of a scientist examining something new. In person, she was smaller and more real, and she stood in the doorway of the house and looked up at Walter with June's expression of assessing a situation before committing to it. Walter crouched down to her level. He said, "You must be Nora." She said, "You have a big house." He said, "I built it." She considered this. Then she walked past him into the kitchen as if the matter was settled. Declan watched her go. He looked at his father. Something passed between them that did not need language. The acknowledgement of a child who carries the people who came before her without knowing it, who walks into rooms the way her grandmother walked into rooms, with that particular quality of ownership that comes from being completely sure you are welcome. They ate dinner at the maple table, all 4 of them. The chairs that had been empty for 3 years filled with voices and the sound of silverware, and Nora asking questions about everything she saw with a thoroughness that made Walter think she might grow up to be an engineer. After dinner, while Margot and Declan washed the dishes and Nora had fallen asleep on the couch under the blanket June had made, Walter went out to the back porch. The February air was cold and clean. The yard was bare and gray, but the oak trees held their shape against the sky. The ones he had planted the year Declan was born, big and permanent and reaching. He stood where June had sat. He looked at the light that was fading over the tree line. The same light she had sat here to watch. The light she had adjusted the foundation plan to face. He said quietly, to the yard and the trees and whatever was listening beyond them, "I understand now what you were doing. I did not for a long time, but I do now." He was not certain about everything. He was a man who had spent 40 years in the discipline of what could be tested and confirmed, and he did not think that discipline and faith were enemies. But he was still learning how they coexisted. He was still learning the language, still finding the words. But he was learning. That was the thing. He was no longer waiting for the weight to lift. He was no longer sitting in the kitchen at 11 p.m. with cold coffee and a bank statement and his hand over the phone he would not answer. He was no longer a man in a house that was too big for one person sitting inside the fact of his own surviving. He was living, not without grief. Grief does not vacate, not the good kind, not the grief that is the other side of love. But grief had taken its proper place now. the way a scar takes its proper place. Present, part of the story, not the whole story. Later that night, after Declan and Margot had gone to bed, and Nora was still asleep on the couch, and the house was quiet in the way it was quiet when it held people again, Walter sat at the kitchen table. He opened YouTube. He found the video in his history. He did not press play. He just looked at the thumbnail for a moment, the reaching golden light, the title that had seemed so calculated to him 3 months ago, and seemed now like something else. Something he did not have a clean word for. He scrolled to the comments. Thousands of them. People writing in the small hours of their own Tuesday nights. From kitchens and bedrooms and living rooms, across a country full of people sitting alone with cold coffee and unanswered phones. Older voices mostly, people who had lost someone. People who had stopped believing something and were trying to find their way back. He read a few of them. Then he pressed the comment box and typed slowly, with the deliberate two-fingered typing of a man for whom phones were still tools rather than extensions of the self. He wrote, "I watched this 3 months ago at 11 at night and almost turned it off. I am a retired engineer. I do not believe in things easily, but my wife left me a Bible verse in a drawer, and I found it 3 days before this video found me, and I am still not sure what to make of that. What I know is this. I called my son. I went back to church. I held my granddaughter for the first time. If God used a YouTube video to start that, I think God can use whatever He wants." June was right about that. She was right about most things. He read it back once, then he posted it. He closed the app. He set the phone face up on the table so the kitchen light caught the dark screen. Then, he picked up June's Bible from where he had left it beside the salt and pepper shakers, turned to the page he had been working through, and continued reading. The house was quiet. The lamp above the table gave its steady light. Outside, the oak trees stood in the dark, patient and enormous, their roots going deep, their branches reaching. Walter read until midnight. Then he closed the Bible, placed it carefully on the table, and went to check on his granddaughter sleeping on the couch under the blanket June had made. Nora had her fist curled under her chin. Her breath was slow and even. She looked, in the low light, so much like the photograph of June at 4 years old that Walter had kept in his wallet for 30 years, that he stood in the doorway for a long moment unable to move. Then he smiled, the smile of a man who has been shown something. He turned off the kitchen light. He walked down the hall. He got into bed, on his side, and reached over and touched June's Bible where it sat on the nightstand. A small contact, a small good night. Then he closed his eyes and slept.